This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free.
Yeah, when my wife met me, she
That's
said
something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
Welcome, everybody. It's Friday to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Here with Vincent Squire from South Jersey, Camden County. He is a candidate for U.S. Senate here in New Jersey. He's running against Cory Booker. And there's another guy running. We haven't mentioned his name. I don't even know if it's worth mentioning it. But there's at least one other guy running. And then we have the queen of the show, Diane Elmary Clements, who's not on air today, but working hard from home. How you guys doing?
Morning. Good morning.
Well, first I want to ask everybody, hit the share button. If you find the information that we provide Monday through Friday here to be valuable information, I'm going to ask you to take the responsibility of sharing it with somebody else so that they can be informed, engaged, and empowered. Firstly, because, I like to try to ease into the heavy conversation. We were talking, Diane, about you working from home during the what I'm calling the age of COVID-19. You're hunkered in. Vincent, you're home. I'm home. I was having a conversation yesterday about the emergence of a new paradigm in the workforce in America as a result of this. And, you were saying to me, firstly, Diane, that, you find yourself working harder at home. And I mentioned to you a statistic that I didn't actually give you the statistic, because I'm going to go find it. But there are statistics out there that bear out that people who work from home tend to work harder, that they're more efficient when they work from home. And so companies have moved toward, prior to this, having more people telecommute. And I think that one of the things, and I was actually talking to Amina about this, I think it was Amina I was saying this to yesterday, that I'm sure companies right now are looking at efficiency data to determine whether or not they're more efficient with people working from home, whether they're more efficient and more productive working with a less of a staff. Right, because they had to kind of go lean and mean right now during the age of COVID-19, and I would say that if a lot of those companies find that people working from home and or working with a smaller staff, they're able to get the same amount of work done. You're going to wind up with people working longer hours once this is all over. Right, they're not going to get the help back because companies at the end of the day are about making a profit.
Well, for me, I've been working from home for the last 7 years. Earlier, during the .com boom, I had a internet group. We used to do those websites, which everybody uses now for buying and purchasing. And I had roughly 7 designers and 1 office. And what I found out is that they spent more time out of the office. So I said, well, listen, I set a quota for production, and they started working, from home. Mm-hmm. And what I found out is that they were working more and more efficiently because, it freed them up from time because then, web designers were kids. So they wanted to go snowboarding and surfing and all that other stuff. So and then I saved a lot of money on huge corporate office space. So it does have a lot of advantages.
Well, think about it. When I first started working from home, I set up a home office, and I'd wake up, my normal time, didn't have the commute time. So where before I was commuting, say an hour to work, hour and a half, I didn't have that, right? I could literally get up, make my coffee, and immediately sit down and begin working. I didn't have the time of getting dressed and, finding my socks and my suit, my tie, my shirt, ironing it, doing all that. Didn't have any of that. Literally roll out of bed, shower, run the coffee maker, and I'm down at my desk, right? And what tended to happen then is your day just kind of blended into, you got hungry, you walked to the kitchen, you got something to eat. What did you do? You came, sat right back down at your desk.
Started working.
Started working again. Oft times you look at your clock and you realize, wow, it's past 5 o'clock, right? And you're still working. And if you got some last minute things to do, you're not concerned about the commute home, either driving or running to catch the train. So you'll say, let me just knock this last couple things out, then I'll go in the kitchen and make myself some dinner. And then if you didn't get that stuff done, right, you paused it, you went and made your dinner, and then you came back and spent another half an hour winding up your work. So the company, whether it's your own company or a company you work for, wound up getting somewhere around 3 hours more worth of work out of you every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I find it with myself that I do a lot of work. I'll sit down and I'll start, and the next thing I know, it's like 3:30, and I'm like, oh, I got to eat lunch. Exactly. So I missed lunch, so why not just fix dinner? So then I'll get up, cook dinner, sit down and eat dinner, and then say, oh, just like you said, let me go finish some more stuff up and get the day done.
Yeah, and even if you were in the middle of fixing dinner, right, we find ourselves multitasking. So as you're processing what you need to do on the computer or at the desk versus a phone call you might need to make to a client to button, a deal up, you'll save that phone call until you're heading into the kitchen to cook your dinner, right? And so now as you're cooking your dinner, you're calling that client. So you're still doing work while you're cooking it. So I really believe that a lot of companies are going to look to go lean and mean when they get back to work after, this whole pandemic kind of settles down a little bit. And we talked about this a couple days ago. People are going to have to figure out how to reinvent themselves because there's going to be a lot of competition in the market because there are going to be a lot of people who are unemployed. Yeah. So that is that. So I think it's a great segue. I didn't even know if I wanted to talk about it. Donald Trump is talking about opening up the economy by May. What do you think?
I'm not coming out until August. I don't trust him. He's already been proven to be a fool. So I'm here until August. I'm good.
I have to agree with Diane. I'm looking more towards the certified or bona fide experts and what they're doing. I mean, keep in mind that, we're making some great strides with shelter in place, even though we still run into a lot of people who are completely idiots. And the numbers are starting to descend. But we still, in terms of New Jersey and Philadelphia, and I'm in South Jersey, so I'm like between both, northern New Jersey and Philadelphia, the hot spots, we still have a lot of strides to actually make. And then we also have to look at what they call the second wave. So, and then, when he said, what did he say? Oh, well, the virus was a hoax. Then you can still catch the virus and you can still work with the virus. Then it was, okay, we're shipping out ventilators and test kits, which nobody got. And then it was, well, we're going to open up the country back at Easter. And now he wants to say, okay, I'm a big fan of America. I'm just the cheerleader for everybody. I want to do what's right for everybody. So by doing that, we are going to open up the country again.
So I mean, but you do have, will you agree to this, that there has to be a balance of determining whether or not the cure for this pandemic and the spread of it is going to be more consequential than the pandemic itself? So when we already look now at the insecurity, so we see right now that in the black community, folks are more susceptible to dying because of underlying conditions, not limited, including but not limited to financial insecurity, right? Which then leads to a whole bunch of other things, right? Poor health and poor eating because you don't have the money. There are no stores in the community that service you with quality, healthy food, all those other kinds of things, right? You're living in poor neighborhoods that are more susceptible to environmental racism, right? Pollution, lead in the water, cancer carcinogens in the water, all of those things. So now if you don't get the economy going back and you already got this racial wealth gap, this racial income gap, all these other kinds of things, you got already had high unemployment and underemployment in the black community. If you don't get the economy going, the people that are more at risk, right, of greater poverty is the black community. And so there has to be a balance that we look at to say, well, how do we solve for that as we're trying to deal with the pandemic? And if you don't pay attention to the economy and getting people back to work so that they can stay in their homes and they can pay their bills, it might be insurmountable for some, leaving them vulnerable to greater food insecurities, greater home insecurities and things like that. And so long after the pandemic has been dealt with, you'll have people who are malnourished, dying of things that that malnourishment contribute to in the winter time. Our residents or neighbors without addresses dying because they're out in frigid weather and dying of hypothermia. So don't we have to take that into consideration as well, Vincent? Diane?
There are... No, go ahead, Diane.
They're doing it before. Why do you think that's going to change? Unless it's going to make people money, they're not going to look into that. That's not their importance.
Well, I'm saying it's going to be what I'm asking is if we're saying that these things were occurring already, right? And people, had 2 jobs and were barely making ends meet. I'm saying it's going to be exacerbated now that they have 0 jobs and they can't make anything meet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people can't reinvent themselves because of because of their age. They're going to use their age as a reason as to trying to do something different, and their educational level. And if they've only done certain specific jobs that can't be done at home, for instance, when you talk about eliminating some employees, if you eliminate the amount of janitors that you have because you no longer have office space or buildings to house offices, then where do those people go to get jobs elsewhere if that's all they know how to do?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, what we're facing is this. There are 2 things that I want to point out that this virus is doing. One, it's renewing the exploitation of people of low income, which a majority of them are people of color, black, Hispanic, etc., Asian, etc. So what we're finding out is that yes, it hits that area and it hits hard. The economic stimulus package basically gives 80% of the money to people who have 5% of the wealth, and we're talking about 20% of the money goes to people who will suffer somewhere close to 73% of the harsh impact of it. Not only of the simple fact that they're dying of the disease, but even the survivors of it. We still have not dove into the after effects of what people will suffer after contracting this disease.
Right.
So now, and not only do we have food insecurities, not only do we have problems that are exploited by the disease because of what we've been eating, where we're located, how many people are in our neighborhood, but even black people in the suburban area. As we discussed, we do live in a better neighborhood, there's better hospitals, we have a better income, but yet our black selves go into these white hospitals and still get subpar treatment.
Right.
So what we have to look at, and that all that has been exploited. And we've been talking about this on your show, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And it's just hitting mainstream now.
Yeah. And so one of the things that you just brought up, Vincent, which nobody is really talking about, guys, is when they look at the survival rate right? So they say, X number of people died from COVID-19, right? Or complications, right? Underlying conditions, however you want to put it, right? I don't want to get distracted by that, but they died in the age of COVID-19. But these are the number of survivors. What we're not talking about is whatever the long-term damage that might have been done to the respiratory system or to other organs of that person's body, right? And these people who, see, the government is saying, I want you guys to listen to this, the government is saying, you know what, we're going to treat you right now, right, medically, right, because we understand the healthcare disparities and stuff, and a lot of people are underinsured or uninsured, so we're going to take care of you right now. But what about afterwards? Right? What about those people who are left with, long-term effects from how their respiratory system was attacked? And understand this, that when your respiratory system is attacked, and I put that video up, and I'm going to put it up again to Dr. Vaughn, it talks about how your other organs, right, start to fail and break down. And so even if you do recover, there has to be an audit, I would say, a medical audit of your body to determine what damage was done to your kidneys, to your liver, to other areas while you were fighting this. And nobody's looking at that, right? No. So at the end of the day, they cart you out of the hospital, and they say, "Oh, here's a survivor." Right?
True.
But, yeah, go ahead, Vincent.
But here is another point that we need to make. They did not bring up the issue of the effects or the amount of black people or people of color dying from disease had it not been for those cities that had black mayors. When they went around and said, okay, we need a count of division, all of the cities that have white mayors and they said, okay, we're not going to divide this by race. We're just going to put them all together. The black neighborhoods, they were like, no, I want to count. And the woman was on TV about, a week ago. She said, no, I need a count of who's dying in what area so that I can detect where the hot spot is. That's where the statistics started pulling up, that black people were dying at an alarming rate from this disease. Now, in terms of your subject, yes, we've already have some underlying conditions based upon our food source and our habits that are going to affect us long term. There are estimates of what it's going to do, but and there are estimates of what they're going to have to work on to cure. But a lot of us know that once one part of those systems start to fail, it's a domino effect.
Yeah. I mean, how many people feel insulted by the fact that there's just this awakening that seems to be occurring right now in Washington, that black folks have had these issues, that black folks have had these financial insecurities, that black folks have had these food insecurities, that black folks have had these underlying conditions and have been dying at alarming rates from obesity and from high blood pressure and from heart disease and all these other things. But there just seems to be an awakening right now. Right, but we've been suffering. You understand what I'm saying to you, Vincent? So all of the high-paid, highfalutin medical folk who are part of these governmental agencies, they were never looking at that data before. And if they were looking at that data and then they were sharing that data, right, whether to Congress or to the Senate or all the way up to the Oval Office, what were people saying and doing about it? And so now, in the age of COVID-19, they want to respond to it. In the words of Joe Biden, malarkey. Call it go.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? I just want to say, Eric, I don't know if it's an awakening or if it's a reassuring to white people that everything is going to be all right. I think that they're the same way originally AIDS was a gay and black people and drug addict black people disease. Maybe that's what they're trying to transform this coronavirus situation to. That they're trying to say, okay, guess what? All you white people hear this. It's happening in the black communities really bad. You guys, if you do these basic minimum things, are going to be all right. It's not hitting. Y'all don't have those underlying conditions. You don't have that on top of each other lifestyle of the apartments and the next door. You live on a quarter acre in these houses in your suburbs and so forth. So you guys got it. Keep your social distancing up. You'll be all right. Still die over it. So now that we want you to start going back to work, there's some precautions we're going to want you to take. But you guys don't got to worry about it like the other guy. Right.
So,
And
I want
with
to
you.
ask, where is so when we talk about elected officials, Farrakhan, everybody seems to be reactionary. Nobody's proactive in any of this.
Always. This is America.
Right.
Oh, no.
But I'm not. No. But I'm not talking.
I mean,
wait a minute. But wait a minute. But I'm not talking about America. I'm talking about America. I'm talking about Newark. I'm talking about Irvington. I'm talking about East Orange. I'm talking about Orange. So to those listeners, right, of this show who live in those areas, Bloomfield, Belleville, Montclair, the folks that you elect, are they ready? Were they ready? Were they qualified? Are they qualified right now to deal with the issues? See, we're being distracted and we're looking down in Washington, right? Or we're looking at the governor's office. But I'm asking your local elected officials, your council people, all those people that you took selfies with and hang out with and party with, that give you hot dogs when you have your block party. Right now, we're in the middle of a crisis. Are they ready? Can they handle that?
You know what? I don't mean to get. I know this might for the show this is a little funny, but I honestly have to say that on this particular.
Farrakhan, I can't hear you clearly.
That Newark's mayor, originally from the start, he was out ahead of it somewhat. He was before the state said, "I'm shutting things down," and take this curfew. The mayor of Newark did say that. So. Was he behind the curve? I think he was behind with the same American curve of reacting and preparing slowly, but probably didn't know to prepare. But as the threat was obvious and evident, I would actually, at least for the North mayor.
No. Hear what I'm saying, Farrakhan. And if you could adjust your phone mic a little bit, people are saying you're a little muffled. But hear what I'm asking. I'm saying even with COVID-19, they're reactionary. Because all these underlying conditions. So what was it, a year and a half ago, when there were folks in Newark who were protesting the fact that folks had gotten kicked out of 224 Sussex Avenue, right, our homeless population, and we were asking what was the city doing about those vulnerable people who had no addresses. When we talk about the increased number of folks who don't have medical coverage, right, sufficient enough to be able to deal with these things. Those are the things that I'm saying. See, so those vulnerabilities exist. So when something like this happens, yeah, you're reactionary, right? You're reactionary to this thing. So yes, you could tell people to stay in the home and do all these other kinds of things, but we are more susceptible because folks dropped the ball all of these years in making sure that we weren't insecure in terms of food. And so we had healthy choices, that the disparity of income and wealth didn't exist. They weren't fighting on these fronts. They weren't ensuring that we were educated properly to be able to compete for jobs that would give us a living wage, right? So all of those factors.
Now you're talking about a different system of government.
No. What I'm saying to you is this. Listen, what I'm saying to you is this.
You're talking about our social issues, right?
No.
And I get.
What I'm saying to you is this. We've been walking around with guns with plastic bullets in them. Right? And so now the war is here and we're trying to shoot and we're getting no results because we didn't have the right ammunition. And those people who were responsible that we elected to ensure that we were armed properly, we find out now that we're not.
Correct.
Right.
See, we weren't armed properly because first, let me explain this. The biggest issue that we dealt with is leadership. And leadership is from the top down. As my grandmother used to say, boy, look, I don't care. Fish rots from the head down. Now, once our president dropped the ball, our governor did pick it up. And some of these mayors did go from that point. But from that point, they they weren't at the area or prepared to get ahead of it. They started bracing for impact. Now they're taking a breath and saying that, okay, it's starting to level or slighten. Now let's see what we can do to get ahead of it. In terms of Black America, it's what they said in the 80s, the trickle-down theory. All the money goes to the top, and it trickles down to Black America to what they get from subsidies to this economic stimulus, to medical, to masks, to gloves, to actually doing something to tell people to stay in place. All of that trickles down, and I'm tired of us being at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, but again, that is because of the system of government, this system of capitalism that we live in. I hear what you guys are saying.
You're right.
But, unless you want to change it from capitalism, okay, what you're asking is that the government take care of people's individual needs. And I don't know if that specifically is what this government is set up to do.
No,
now,
so hear what I'm saying.
Okay?
Let's keep it local, Farrakhan. Let's keep the conversation local for a second. I'm saying if I live in Bloomfield and I go and I elect my mayor and I elect my council, my local government is closest to my specific needs, right? So I shouldn't have to scream all the way to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I should be able to talk about my very specific needs and insecurities, to my local government, right? And then my local government is responsible for pushing those needs and concerns up, whether it's to the county level or to the state level, right? And then the state, they push those needs up. And then we have, in terms of our government, we have our congressional leaders, right? And we have our U.S. senators who now take that fight down to Washington, right? So I'm saying in all of our areas, when everybody's now running around talking about, oh, Black people are more susceptible because of blah, 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 I'm saying, well, Donald Payne, you knew that. Cory Booker,
we already knew that.
You knew that, right?
Right.
Ron Rice, you knew that. We can go down the list of all of these Black folk that knew it all these years. And what I'm saying to you is this: where were they beating the drum about this to bring about change? Instead, what they were doing, let's be honest, what they've been doing is they've been funding. So this is why I get so disgusted, Farrakhan, when I look and see, for instance, the League of Municipalities, and then all of them go and party down there, right? So they're all partying together, knowing the plight that exists in our community. And they're funding a Democratic Party that doesn't give a shit, right? So when they write checks, when they hold fundraisers, when they contribute or take money from this party, right? And now they want to stand up. This is what I'm saying. So now in the age of COVID-19, they want to talk about how they give a damn about us and how they want to look at these studies and they want to know specifically about. Come on, stop it.
That's bull. That's all bull. Because what they're truly doing right now is those people who could have cared a crap about the Black condition before COVID-19. The only thing they're doing right now is using the statistics because now it's mainstream about the effects of Black people with COVID-19. Now they want to use this as their political soapbox. I'm for the Black people.
Right. Oh. But you know what though? But Farrakhan, they should all be ashamed, right? Because on their watch, the ball wasn't moved, right? On their watch, I'm talking about local people. So if we talk about education. So all of these boards of education that have all these Black folks on their watch, they didn't improve it to ensure that our kids, generation after generation, would be able to compete for jobs that paid a decent wage that allowed them to buy food, right? If we're going to talk about diabetes, we're going to talk about high blood pressure, we're going to talk about all those things. Well, let's go back to why people are eating the food that they're eating, why they're in the neighborhoods that they're in, right? And all of those reasons why they're eating the food.
But now, E, you got to admit that all of what you just said is greater than a local municipality.
No, okay? But listen to what I'm saying to you. I'm not disputing.
Nothing. Hold on now. The conditions of Black America, or we're going to just say North, right? The conditions of the people of North are greater than the individual, greater than the
I'm not
municipality.
disputing that, Farrakhan.
We have been put.
That's not what
I'm going by what you said, right? So just let me finish. Like I let you finish, right? By what you said. Now, first off, this is what I will say. In respect of these politicians that I don't even vote for, I don't like them. I didn't vote for any of the current things in those towns, right? So and wouldn't have supported them. But what I am going to say is this: if I look at the people of the community, I don't see them trying to change their situation. Perfect example is how we have.
Got it.
Perfect example is how we have constantly been telling people to stay themselves in the house when they're out playing basketball. You understand? So how does a mayor who's faced with people who, when something is killing them, won't even sit their butts in the house?
I'm going to explain it to you. So let me explain it to you, right? So here's the deal. When you've shown me that you don't give a shit about me in all other aspects of my life, right? Where you're prepared to support a guy to sit as president of a board of education. We're going to talk about Newark. So you show me that you don't really give a shit about me and getting an education. So you're going to support a guy who could barely read on a 7th grade reading level to sit atop a $1 billion corporation that is responsible for educating almost 40,000 people. So you show me you don't give a shit about me. You care more about politics than you do about me. Now, in the age of COVID-19, you want me to listen to you and believe you care about me. See, so what I'm saying to you, Farrakhan, is they do things. They condition. These black elected officials condition the community too. You see, they condition the community, whether it's through them not caring about you in their misfeasance and malfeasance of budgetary issues, all kinds of stuff. When they don't clean the lots properly and allow us to live in filth. Now, I'm not going to say that, and yes, we shouldn't be throwing the garbage on the ground in the first place, right? But when you hire people who are not qualified in departments where they're supposed to go and clean up, then you say my government doesn't care about me. These people don't care about me. They don't care about me. And that keeps coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. Up in Orange, where you have the feds crawling all over, where you see people going to jail up there. There are people in Orange that say they don't care about you. And now you want the mayor to stand there and say, I care about you? That's what I'm saying. So they've made this bed. They are partly responsible for the bed that they made. These young people that you're talking about, or now older people who are out there disregarding the law, right? These were the same folks who at one point sat in classrooms, right? And instead of having a board of education that was focused on educating them and caring about them, they were more concerned about politics. And so they let them fall through the cracks. And now we want to wag our finger at them. At those people on the street, but we don't want to own the part that we played while we were electing our boy to be the mayor, or our boy to be the councilman, or I like this person so I want them to sit on the board of education. See, we got to take ownership for that. You see, and so all of it, everybody looks, they know. If you ask and look, I'm not saying that everybody shouldn't be accountable for their own things. But we cannot eliminate the lack of responsibility that our elected officials played in some of what we're dealing with right now. That's what I'm saying.
And I agree with both of you, because you're both saying parts of the same. Now, and I agree, the simple fact that, yes, we have to first take accountability for ourselves and our actions. The second thing is that we have to take accountability for the part that we played with our elected officials. We have to take accountability for the simple fact of this. The understanding of government is that they are to do the following things: provide for the common defense, support the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Now, when they do not do that, there's a level of accountability. And you're right, yes, we should be cleaning up and not throwing trash in our streets, but in terms of the government, they should be there to actually clean off these vacant lots and board up these abandoned buildings. Yes, we should be wearing masks, washing our hands, keeping our behinds in the house, but in terms of the government, they should actually been there and been in front of this, and you know what, that instruction of putting masks on before you go in the stores should have happened way before Eric Dawson said it on his show. Way before that. Accountability and being active. That's the leadership that we need. That's the leadership that we voted for. And what we're finding out is not only is it exploiting black people and its plight, but it's also exploiting who has a big responsibility for it. These people that we voted for and elected, that sit up here and come into our neighborhoods, and are the same people that voted and allowed them to give you $1,200 for your family.
Exactly. And, you know, look, I'm simply saying, guys, you know, we have a lot more work to do, and don't allow these politicians in this moment to get you to believe that they care about you. They sat and watched year after year, decade after decade. They watched all of this. And they knew that you were ill prepared. They knew. They knew you were ill prepared. They see the statistics. They knew. And they did nothing. And now, because it's sexy to pile on and to talk about it as though they do care about it. I mean, like I said the other day, it's no different than the conversation that was taking place in 2016 when they talked about Black Lives Matter for the first part of the the presidential season, and then after it was no longer sexy, they didn't talk about it anymore. But they knew the issues impacting the black community. And then this election cycle, when they were talking about reparations and whether or not they should have committees or studies to determine whether or not they know it all. They know what's going on. They choose not to make you a priority.
Correct.
Until such time that making you seem like you're a priority benefits them in re-election. And that's what's happening right now.
The biggest insult, and Farrakhan, I want to thank you for sending me the link, but the biggest insult I saw on social media was the governor who was sitting up here busting his behind, trying to get what we needed to prepare the state of New Jersey for impact for this virus. And then we see Cory Booker going, and I talked to the president, and I'm making sure that he's going to send us. That's bull!
Well, listen.
That's bull! That should have been done. He should have been doing all of that when they were talking about doing his economic stimulus package. He should have been doing all of that when in November, when it was known throughout Washington that this virus was coming. He should have been doing all of that back then. Now it's an election cycle. There are people nipping on his heels, and everybody's upset, and he wants to sit up there and pal around with the governor like he's doing something. Come on, people.
But that's the Democratic Party, right? We know that when we saw Cory Booker up there, that was part of the Democratic Party's process of getting him involved to give him profile so that when it comes time for re-election, he's out there. So, again, I don't know what's more important. I don't know right now if it's more important for us as individual people, American citizens, to say we have to look in the mirror and change ourselves. Because our elected officials are an example of what we have been around, right? So, again, is it the people? Because you said something really funny to me, Eric. You described the guy on the board. I'm not going to say his name, but I don't know what position, if he's like the president of it or whatever. But you described him, right? And it described our president, right? The illiterate guy in charge of billions of dollars. Now, our illiterate guy for president is in charge of trillions, right? And we still have him. So it's an American thing, right? Our mindset, we are lazy people. Let's be honest, okay? I'm not saying you, I'm saying in general, like that 51%. We are lazy people who have allowed our basic civil liberties to be imposed upon by our government, giving them the right to basically dictate our lives. And then we only react when something directly affects us.
Correct.
Simple and
correct.
So it's not that I'm trying to defend any member of government, right? Whether it's municipal or federal. What I'm just saying is that for what I see as an individual, okay, the problem isn't as much the political leaders as it is the constituency. It's us. to make our country better. And by not doing that, whether it's voting in the proper people, having the due diligence to know who you're voting, to look at their history, right? To not just say because somebody had a good speech after 10, 12 years of being governor of the state of New York, that now we should be yelling that person for president. What about the other 10 years of what he's been doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's American for you. That's Black America for you. We go with headline. We go with the easy. We don't go deep in. And so before we do that, this is what we'll be having this. Our grandkids will be having this discussion.
Okay. All right.
Brother Farrakhan,
it might be COVID 51 by then. So
hey,
they'll be having this discussion.
Brother Farrakhan, I got another one for you. Not only do we do that, but we also, when in terms of these politicians and how they keep their job, when they run into opposition, all they do is not talk about their bad record when somebody is challenging them in an election. What they do is now scandalize and villainize the person running against them who want to do good. I ran for election a couple of years ago. And in fact, I was even on Eric Dawson's show. And I expressed to him, and openly, honestly, you know what? Back in 2008, I was arrested and incarcerated and did 5 years. And after that, this is what I've done. Yes, I paid for my mistake because, and yeah, I could sit up here and cry that, yeah, I was a victim of mass incarceration. Yes, I had legal. Yes, I never had a criminal record, but all of a sudden now I do 5 years. Unprecedented, unheard of. Yes, it was a white-collar crime. But yet, there are people who will scandalize that and turn it into more than what it actually was because it benefits them. It benefits them to divide the votes. And then the same people who are in power, who got us in this situation, remain in power. We have to stop looking at that and looking at the people who are doing nothing. As we come into this new norm in our society, this new norm in our localities, in our neighborhoods, this new norm of our government, we have to start looking at, you know what, we need a new norm with these politicians and take a new strategy in approaching who we vote for. We have to stop letting the political machine villainize good people. That's one of the biggest reasons we don't have good people who run for office. Mm-hmm. Because nobody wants to go through what I went through. To scandalize me, you know they paid my ex-wife to prosecute me for slapping my son, for disciplining my son. My son threw a hammer through a large screen television, 80-inch. I slapped him. He called his mother. His mother took me to the police, and since I was running for freeholder for slapping my child, I got second-degree aggravated assault. No bumps, not a bruise, not a hickey, not a black eye, bloody nose, or busted lip. Second-degree aggravated assault. Facing, because of my criminal record, facing 36 years of my life. Because, and my ex took the money and proceeded with the prosecution. Everybody said that this was a non-offense. Every man, according to the state of New Jersey, has the right to discipline their child. I discipline my child for one simple reason. I don't want him to think that he's entitled to do wrong and nothing happens to him. I discipline my child because I don't want him to go through what I went through, going to prison for absolutely nothing. I discipline my child because I don't want one day to find out that he done hit some old woman over her head for a pocketbook because he wanted some extra money. I discipline my child so that he could be a productive and better member of society. Yet, because it was political, I went through trial and was found not guilty. Yet people turn that story around and exploit it too. In fact, he called your show, didn't he, Eric? The guy called your show and said that I beat my child bloody and half to death.
Yeah. This was last year. Somebody called the show and did that.
I remember that.
All right. Listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to watch out when people are saying things about these future candidates and discussing, their past. You have to wonder, what is their gain for doing it?
Yeah.
Are they to stop the system, stop the process, and stop somebody who wants to do what's right for the country, or are they doing it because they want to get reelected so they can continue on exploiting you?
Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about this because some of the numbers that are coming out from Dr. Fauci now slashing his prediction from 100,000, 240,000 deaths to 60,000 deaths are fueling these conspiracy theorists once again, right? Saying, see, I told you. See, I told you. The government is shutting down everything, and over 60,000 deaths when there's only going to be 60,000 deaths possibly. You had more deaths, from cancer and from influenza and so forth, so on. So I want to have the discussion around whether or not we're flattening the curve, whether these mitigation tactics are working, and whether or not, we should have been moving in the direction that we're moving in terms of shutting the government down. We'll be right back.
Yes.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
Stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. It's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go to sleep. The end.
Go, caller.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh, no, I was just saying to what you had just said before the break, Eric. Again, I think the numbers were deliberately inflated. That's obvious to see now. And when it falls short, again, what it does is it allows for them to look like heroes. Look at what we did. We were definitely going this direction, but we cut it down. What? You're talking estimates now that are as low as 50% to 25% of what the initial numbers were told were going to be. We were up to 240,000 worst case scenario. So now you're down to 60, 80,000 worst case scenario or reality. So if that's the case, what does that say for Donald Trump? Now, earlier Vincent said, in speaking about Donald Trump and his, way he's handled it, that, he had done it wrong or, incompetent. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was one of the first things he said today on the show. But in the end, when we look at these numbers, and these numbers come in around 60 or 80,000 as opposed to 100 plus thousand, he's a champion. And Fauci is a champion. And that's what, now there's going to be areas in which we're hard hit. We know New York, New Jersey, the major metropolitan. But nationally, he's going to be a champion.
Right. So I mentioned this about a week ago, right? When Dr. Fauci, whenever it was that Dr. Fauci came on and said, best case scenario, if we do everything right, we'll be lucky. He said, we'll be lucky if we're below 100,000, right? But they were predicting somewhere between 100,000 and 240,000. And what I said then was, Donald Trump, this is his to lose, right? If he comes in under 100,000, then we were lucky, you see, and Donald Trump got us there. through doing everything right, mitigation. So here's a question I want to ask you though. When we're pounding, and Sam Jackson, I think, does it most eloquently in that commercial, "Stay the F at home." If the mitigation tactics are working, right? Shutting down the border, limiting the flights that are going out and coming in, the governors around the union, issuing shelter-in-place orders, shutting down public places, schools now being shut down, all of those things, all those places that would have added to the spread, right? Could it be, Farrakhan, that simply because you have enough people who are following these mitigation tactics, right? That we are now flattening the curve, and we can now see the results in the prediction of 60,000 or so deaths.
Okay, now here's my answer. It's still Trump. And the reason I say that is because that stupid poster that Mike Pence puts up every day on the COVID-19 outline of what to do, that's being touted as Donald Trump's plan.
Oh no! I'm not debating that. I'm simply I'm not debating that. But that's not the question that I'm asking. The question I'm asking is this, right? Could it be that if we didn't follow whoever you want to assign a plan to, whoever you want to give credit to, the question that I'm asking is this: if they were looking at the models coming out of Europe, coming out of China, and saying, based on those models, this is what's projected. But now here are the techniques that we're talking about people employing, social distancing, shutting down the schools, all of the other things, giving the information about washing your packages, washing your hands, not touching your face, all those things that we're now doing those things. And because of that 100,000 to 240,000 number has dropped down to 60,000. I'm saying, so I'm asking, do you really believe that the number was inflated, or do you believe that we're just following what they're asking us to do?
I believe maybe a combination. Mm-hmm. I do believe the number was inflated, right? I always believe that, like with anything, right? As a project manager, I'm sure you know this, right? To some degree, you operate depending on what the project is at almost a worst case scenario, so that you can give yourself some room, right? So you room to go left or right with it. So I believe they did that, okay? Because if I don't believe that, then I would have to believe that there's been no medical advancement to the point to curb such
well, that's not true. Right? That's not true. Wait. That's not true. There's more testing. Part of the issue was testing.
No.
Wait. I just want to see. We gotta right. Testing was a huge issue, and we got more testing. The other issue was ventilators. We have more ventilators, and maybe not enough, but we have more. The other issue was
we have more than enough currently, right? If you go by the mayor, if you go by like a guy like Cuomo, who was saying we need 30,000, right? He said everybody that needs a ventilator is currently getting one. Right? And that no one wants to get it. But no. Andrew Cuomo said that. Now, I got it still shared on my page, okay, from one of his links. He has said that virtually every day. He has never said that someone has not died.
I think you're getting in the weeds on this, Farrakhan. I think I want to stay out of the weeds. The only point that I was making here was this: you said that there were no medical advancements, and I'm saying that's not true. There are more than before, more than 2 weeks ago. Let me finish.
I said that it would mean that I would have to believe that there were no medical advancements that could shorten or reduce an epidemic like this. I know there's been medical advancements.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize.
With all of today's technology,
right,
that we can address an epidemic faster than we could in 1918.
Sure.
And shorten it, right?
Okay.
So I have to believe that.
So now here's the next question I have for you. So now the doctor, because I think that when he put that number out, 100,000 to 240,000, people went, "Oh crap," right? And literally, it sent the fear of God through the hearts and souls of a lot of people. Now that he's looking and going at 60,000, Do you believe that that is going to create a relaxed state of mind for people, and that they're going to say, "See, it's no big deal. It was never really a big deal."
I just said a little earlier on the show, right? I said that as they transfer this to a black, poor, and old senior citizen issue, right, was for the purpose of relaxing it, so that certain groups of people will be cool and calm with going back to their normal with some slight changes. So, yeah, I do believe that's going to happen, right? But the thing to realize, the number that probably I would have thought scared everybody was the 70% number. Remember when they were touting that 70% of Americans are going to get the coronavirus? See, so then everybody wanted to, like I said yesterday, duck from the bullet. Right? Okay. So people started doing something, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was like, hold up, 70%? I don't want to be part of that, because you don't know, even if only 2 or 3%, 4%, whatever it is, die from it, I don't want to be in the race to die from it. So people started doing something different.
And here, this is what it actually came to. When those early predictions came out of people who would be affected by it, that was the simple fact that right then, the only thing that the president did at that particular time was say that, okay, we're just going to shut down our flights to China. That is where the alarm came up, and everybody was pushing at, okay, this is the numbers. And the numbers state that at this point in time, now keep in mind, by the time he shut down China, we've already started to get into the thousands of cases of people positive for coronavirus. And based upon that and the spread, they said that this is the death toll of America. You need to do something. Now, when that happened, that set off the alarms. When the president did nothing, that's when all the governors started to step in. Before the president entered into a voluntary shelter in place, 40% of American governors have already done it. That's when... No. Farrakhan, let me finish. When they started to do that, and then 2 weeks later came out all that false information, but people stuck to the mantra of this. Wash your hands, wash your packages, keep your distance. And that's when the actual, now we're talking about a 2-week period from the time that someone contracts the virus to the point where their symptoms are prevalent enough for them to be pronounced with it. So that number started dropping. The reason that the number started dropping is because we still don't have enough of 22% of the population. The other reason that the numbers are dropping is the simple fact that people are dying off and they're not being counted for it. We are not counting people who die at home or die in the street or people who have not seen a doctor who pronounced them with the COVID virus. What they're now saying is that they didn't die from COVID-19, they died for complications. That's why the number's dropping. Now, you want to use these small numbers to, hail Donald Trump a hero? Really? The man who said that you can go to work with the disease? You want to use this number to hail that, you know what? The governors are doing right? Yeah, they are doing good, and they are taking leadership. You want to hail this number, in fact, of saying that, you know what, we can open up the country again? No. Diane said it earlier. I ain't coming out until September. That's a great deal of Americans that feel that way right now. No, but I'm not going to sit up here and be.
They're
going to go back and work in May if Donald Trump says so, whether they feel it or not. See, Diane, working for herself, can figure it out. Right? Maybe I can figure it out. Maybe Eric can figure it out. Maybe you can figure it out. But guess what? We're just like people are so happy to get $1,200 mindlessly, right? They're going to be happy to go back to work mindlessly. That's America for you. That's America for you. And that's just facts. You know what I'm saying? You watch, right? If they say, if the government says you can go back to work tomorrow, people would run back.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
They want to start going outside now without gloves and masks. You think they wouldn't go back to work?
So wait a minute. So wait. But look. But let me say this. I'll say this, right? Because another one of my clients just opened their restaurant back up. I was talking to Diane because as a small business that services restaurants, I personally was hit hard. We were servicing 26 restaurants, and all but 2 shut down. Right, so this fledgling business that I started was now on a respirator, right, just gasping for air. This past week, these last couple days, 4 of them opened up and called me to service them. So I did, and so new life was breathed into the business. And I literally, as we're talking now, just got a text message that another one is opening up. And so there are people who are looking forward to opening their businesses. There are people looking forward to getting back to work, which goes back to what I was talking about earlier, right? Where you have this discussion that is happening right now, and I wonder the level of I have an inkling, but how much politics is involved in it versus just reality for people who are suffering, right? So you've got the government still hasn't figured out how to get these checks to people who don't have in a timely fashion, people who don't have direct deposit. I saw on a post today that somebody, after spending days trying to file for their unemployment, was finally able to get it done, but a lot of other people still haven't been. So all of this is happening. Right? And there's this academic conversation that's taking place, but then there's this reality of suffering happening, and people are going, look, how bad is it? I need to pay my bills. I want to get back to work. And then for the small businesses, they're saying, listen, everything that I've invested is about to go down the toilet. I need to do something. And meanwhile, you got this political wrangling going on between the Democrat and the Republican Party because of what you said earlier, Farrakhan, and I believe it. If the economy comes back, and if those numbers are lower than 100,000, Donald Trump's a champion. He's a champion, and I think the Democratic Party knows that. And so part of what they want to do is keep confusion, keep suffering going, so that they can point the finger at this guy. Listen, I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but I don't want my family and friends to suffer. I want them to get back to work. I want their businesses to thrive. You see, I want people to be healthy. And we got to get beyond the politics to get to that. Hold 1 second. We got another caller coming in.
One question.
Caller, go.
Hey, good morning, guys. Just sitting back listening to your conversation. Just want to speak from being on the fight of being on the front line of environmental justice. And most of the time, people will put their values and they will categorize their values when it comes to environmental issues. Their health will always be at the low end of prioritizing things, as opposed to being able to be in position to maintain the property value, make money, so forth and so on. And this is where we are. This hurricane that we're in the eye of it. And they usually say the backside of a hurricane is the worst side, because people, become vulnerable. They come out, the storm is over. But no, the backside of the storm is coming. And when you prioritize, when your values, when your moral values tell you that your health is at the end of the line, and I have to make money, and I have to go to work, and my bills are coming, and this, that, and the third. Well, let me tell you, if you don't have your health, you can't get no money. You can't get out there and make no money. So you better make sure that your health is in the front line of what's coming. You better prioritize your health, in front of all your wealth and property value and your earning ability, because where we are now is that, if we can agree that you can be discriminated for political reasons, this is what I see, that they want to keep the numbers low so they can politically look good. But meanwhile, in a discriminatory way, they're allowing people to die at home and succumb to this illness and not be tested so that the numbers will be low. This is not by accident. The testing is not taking place. This is a world pandemic. America is leading in categories of the death rate and illnesses. So, it's...
But here's the question I want to ask you again.
For political reasons, we're being discriminated against when it comes to...
Mike, can I ask you a question? Do you believe...
Yeah,
So, and I know you had a question for Farrakhan. Actually, let me let you ask your question for Farrakhan, and then I'll ask Mike my question.
It's a basic, simple one, right? Because, we've been talking about, what we're going to do when we come out of this. So I asked the question, or the question I'm asking is, I would like to know the statistics, we mentioned the word of statistics for how many people right now while at home are enrolling in new online learning courses to professional development courses so that they will be of a greater value coming out of this so that they won't necessarily be so stuck in this position. I think I almost guarantee you most people are just home binge watching Netflix because that's all I see when I look at Facebook. Everybody telling me about the show that they want. I haven't heard anybody telling me that they went and increased their employable skills or their marketable skills so that if things like this happen, you have another outlet. People are just going to run back to work. And because we were talking about people going back to work is why I'm saying this. People are running back to the same situation they were already in, not even figuring out how to protect themselves from the second wave of this when it comes.
Correct.
And you're going to have another wave.
You're absolutely right, and that's what he was saying. Is that everybody see these new numbers, and now the political marketing machine of President Trump is now saying that it's not that bad. We can open. We're getting ready to get our group together to reopen the country. And what people are forgetting is that there is a second wave. There are still some people who are going to be in the incubation period with this disease that will hit, and then we're in this all over again.
Right. So I want you to again understand the landscape. So yes, we have you have people who are trying to get back to work. You have one of my clients is opening back up. So congratulations on them trying to open back up. You have the second wave coming. We have this information that we've always had about the fact that black folks are more at risk and are dying at disproportionate rates. That's gonna continue to happen. We talked earlier about all of the issues of survival of the coronavirus, right? Those things haven't been looked at. So there's this climate that's out there that we're still wrapped up in. The war, we're literally right in the middle of this war. Right in the middle. And I'm telling you, your elected officials are ill prepared. They didn't prepare you. They didn't do the job to prepare you for this battle, and they're not prepared.
Eric, this is the timing of our elected officials and our quote-unquote old-school black leaders. You and I discussed the financial and medical ramifications of black people and the numbers. I did mine based on some Washington insiders who already had the numbers and told you about it. We're talking about 2 weeks ago. Last night, everybody's sending me this link with Al Sharpton and all these other people called the State of Black America Coronavirus. Where the heck have you guys been? White mainstream's already talking about it.
But that's what I'm talking about. The NAACP, the Urban League. Let's go down the goddamn list of people. They're all of them. They were all frauds. All of them.
All of them.
Wait, we're talking over.
Hang up. Can I say this? I want everybody just to think about this. Right? Again, it boils down to the people and the choices the people make. Go to ShopRite, right? Go to any supermarket in the black community. What's sold out first? Ramen noodles. Now, they're talking about underlying conditions. Like, when you talk about underlying conditions, right? Fruits and vegetables, they still got all of that. They ain't sold out of none of that in any of the supermarket.
But wait a minute.
The ramen noodles.
But wait a minute.
Like that. All the unhealthy stuff went.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're not even figuring out that we need to improve our health.
But wait a minute. Wait.
I've been telling us this. We're still not doing it. We are, like I said in the post a couple of days ago, doomed if we don't make a change.
Go ahead, Mike.
You're broad. That's a broad broad statement. You know, a lot of people are eating fruits and vegetables and taking care of their health, but the masses are being, people are being conditioned to act and move a certain way. But I want to get back to something you said earlier with the numbers and black people. I want people to understand they've always been able to point at black people. The government have always been able, not saying that the numbers are wrong, but they've always been able to point at the black community and say, look, it's those people over there. I want everybody to understand that these numbers are affecting the American population, black, white, rich, and poor. Don't let these people in totality say, look at the black community over there. They're the ones that suffer from this the most. Y'all come back out. Yeah, and they've always been able to use us like that. But it's we have these conditions in our community, our poor health conditions and environmental issues. That is true. But this thing here is something different. We can't allow them to say, look at those people over there. No, everybody come back out. This is the okey doke. White people will get to the point where they think that they're exempt, and Donald Trump, the master carpetbagger, will have them back on the street getting exposed at greater rates.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Now that the numbers are low, and they're saying, and now that the numbers are showing that it affects heavily in the black population, Donald Trump's thing is going, the country is okay because it doesn't affect white America. Go back to work and restart the economy. That's the whole thing. That's how he wants to get elected.
Well, listen, I agree with Farrakhan. He raised a very good point, and we talked about this the other day. Listen, you're sheltered at home. Take the opportunity. You know, we had Deidre on the show, and I'm letting you guys know she's going to become a frequent. She's going to become a co-host, and she's going to bring a wealth of information in terms of job preparedness, interview preparedness, opportunities, because she owns her job placement company. And she said that she represents recruiting firm, and she represents over 60 businesses. So I'm excited to be able to bring that resource to us. But there are things that you can be doing to prepare yourself when we emerge from this. They're saying they're looking at 4 to 8 weeks of opening the economy, and so if we're looking at that as the start date, what are you doing to prepare yourself? And what I'll say to you is this. There are a ton of websites that you could go to. I'm going to say this to you. You can go to, I'll give you one. It's called Virtual, and I don't get paid for it, but it's one that I use personally. It's called Virtual Training Company, VTC, right? Online. It's a modest subscription. In fact, you could go there and there's no fee to watch the first few videos of each of the software training programs that they have there. I went to school and did all of that, but the software that I know how to use now didn't exist when I was at the School of Visual Arts. So in order for me to learn it, right, either I went to the store and got books, or I found other ways of learning, right, self-taught. VTC has been a cornerstone in my continued professional development, in all of the tools that I use, learning how to build websites, learning how to create graphics, learning how to do all of those things. And I use that to rise to the levels that I rose to in corporate America. So me becoming vice presidents of major corporations and other kinds of things, I use that software, which still exists. So it's VTC, I think it's VTC.com, but I'll put it in a link. Take the time. You literally can become proficient at coding websites in 8 weeks. You can do that. Like, if you literally spent the amount of time that you spend watching these shit television shows, You can become proficient and come out of this thing saying, you know what? I no longer work at a cashier as a cashier, you know, and looking to go back to that job. You know, I spent this time, and I'll tell you this, if you were to ask Deidre, and she'll be on next week, hey, listen, if I came to you as a recruiter and said, look, I took those 8 weeks and invested them in myself, in professional development, and this is what I did. You know, ask her how a recruiter would respond to that. So take this time. Look, you know, they say things happen for a reason. I don't know about that. But if you're one of those people that believe that things happen for a reason, maybe the reason was to slow you down when you didn't know how to slow yourself down, to pull you out of a job that was pulling you down and give you a new vista, a new view at things, and an opportunity to learn something new. Take that smartphone and make it smart. Take that computer and make it work for you. That's what I'd say. Anyway, that's enough of me being on my soapbox. So let's see how many people do it. And you know what? If you do it, if you do, right, call into the show and let us know. Like, I want to know the people. Well, put it in a thread. I want to know the people who are investing in themselves right now, right, professionally, in terms of professional development. And what you're doing, what kinds of things, what resources you might be able to share with some of the people who tune into this show, right? Be an inspiration to somebody else right now. But please, I'd hate to know that folks are just waiting to collect a check and to go back into that same job that wasn't paying their bills before.
Right. Or being working poor. Because the majority of coders now are making above $60,000 a year, where the average cashier is making minimum wage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely an opportunity for you to increase the quality of your life and the life of your family.
It is. So listen, Diane asked me to talk about this. This is some local politics, and I commented on it in the thread, and Jason clarified it for me. And Diane, I don't know if you're still on the line, but I want to read what he posted. Right? He posted. He said, after some deep. Well, let me put down.
You got to get some context of who he is.
Right. So he was recently elected as a county committee person in Union. Right. He ran against the political machine on a progressive platform with about 60 other people, and they were able to capture in that fight, which was I think last election cycle. They were able to capture just under half of those seats that they ran for, right? Or a third of those seats that they ran for. And he monitors a very influential Facebook page that seems to have a lot of the political elites on their heels. And so, we've had him on the show several times. We had him on the show promoting his candidacy. And like I said, for me, I understand how wicked the entire system is, both Democrat and Republican, and it all needs to be torn down. And my belief was that Jason was of the same mindset, being a progressive. Did I do a good enough job, Diane?
Yep,
okay.
That's it.
So here's what was put in this comes from the New Jersey Progressive Democrats of Union County, and this was posted yesterday at 7:05 p.m. And it says, breaking, early today, the Union County Clerk's Office conducted their drawing for ballot placement in the July 7th New Jersey primary. Defying decades of precedent, NJPDUC and their slate of candidates drew column A on the ballot. After years of being told only real Democrats are in column A, we are honored to accept this promotion. Our party needs to come together and serve the people now more than ever. And we can do this with the rally cry we have come all too familiar with, hearing column A all the way. So now this is what the progressives are saying. So they're saying now, because we're in column A, we should now be chanting something that we have been decrying for decades, that we should now be chanting column A all the way. And then this is what Jason posts an hour after that post went up. He says, After some deep reflection and years of being told column A was the way to go, I've decided everyone saying that was correct. Time to come together and vote column A all the way, quote unquote. I think that's how the saying goes. Can someone who usually puts this on their attack ads or shouts it to the people every year on election day let me know if I'm doing this right? So go ahead, Diane.
His statement is a bit confusing. The first statement that he makes is, there was a line pulled. So what usually happens is before the election, once all the candidates are put in, once they're qualified by the town clerk, the clerk then sets up a date for your position to be pulled, meaning whether you're in column A, B, or C for the election. It seems that apparently the poll was done, and at that particular time, his team now has column A.
Right.
So what he has stated as being column A being the Democrats that are old school and never want to listen to you and do what's necessary. Now we finally have this line column, and now I want to do what I have said I wouldn't do before is now proclaim that vote line A all the way.
Right.
Which means that what will happen is for the Democratic Party, is the entire Democratic Party will be on line A, meaning from your governor, not your governor, but from the governor, if the governor was up for election, governor all the way down the ballot.
U.S. Senator will be on line A.
Yes.
Right. The Congressman Donald Payne will be on line A. Right.
Your president.
Right. Your president be on line. All of these people be on line A. Right. Now, what I commented when I saw that, I went into Jason's thread and I commented and I said, the compromise you're willing to make is a short-term feel-good compromise that's going to lead to long-term problems. And the problems are, how do you spend your life telling people don't vote for line A, except when I'm on line A? How do you do that, right? Because understand what you're doing. You're promoting a brand, and the brand is line A. Yes. Right? The brand isn't you as an individual candidate who is talking about the things that you're going to do. You're promoting a brand to which you don't own. And so now when you're no longer on line A, and then those droves of people are still pushing that brand, now you want to go back and tell them don't push the brand.
Right.
You see? And so Jason responded back to me, and he said, Eric Dawson, the post was meant to be sarcasm. But this is what this machine usually says, and they almost always get column A. We were drawn into the slot this year, thus the post. Our candidates and organization wants ballot reform and wants to get rid of columns on the New Jersey elections. Now, here's what I'll say about that, right? Because then I responded to Jason and I said, ballot reform, term limits, and campaign finance reform are all near the top of the list for me. Now, but here's how you do it, right? If what Jason and those guys put on their literature is vote line A, then they're working contrary.
They're supporting all the do nothing candidates.
That's absolutely right. So part of, and this is gut check time. Part of doing the work is still promoting you as an individual candidate, saying that you hold true to the ideology that we need to get rid of line A. We need to get rid of ballot vote. We need to get rid of
line item politics.
Right, line item politics. So it should be literature that says Jason is running and says this one is running and says who you support, but not line A. Line A, I'm telling you, it all it does is feed the beast.
Well, what it also does, as what Jason wants it to do, is to use and manipulate people's voting and say, we're part of line A now, so you can vote for us too. It's okay.
Well,
so
yeah.
The ones that he wouldn't necessarily pull over away from the party because they're your dedicated party supporters that will never leave the party regardless. He's going to now pull them in and basically ride their back for the votes as well.
Right, and so to what Farrakhan was saying earlier when he asked the question, well, people should just come out and vote, or made the statement rather, people need to take responsibility, and I agree that they should. But here's a case, Farrakhan, where you have a person potentially, and I hope that Jason is listening or somebody's listening and pulling his coattail, because we'll be watching closely. But if Jason promotes line A, then all he's doing is playing to the very lowest common denominator in our electorate, right? As opposed to continuing the effort of educating them.
Correct. Because and this is the power of line and politics. People fight to go on line A because you run into 67% of the voters are uneducated about the politicians or the candidates. So when these people are lazy enough not to know who they're voting for, they just go one line straight down, the first person on the Democratic ticket. So they look for the largest person in which they know and go all the way down that block, which means that anybody fueling or helping some of the bigger brands who are in line A, could be terrible politicians. Do nothing, kiss but part of the machine.
Yeah. But part of our big issue is brand politics, right? Brand politics, correct. Whether you say Republican, Democrat, right? That's brand politics. Or you say line A, that's brand politics. Even saying progressive is brand politics. Right, and then so we have to make a decision. Either we want to blow it up or not. But if we want to blow it up, we got to blow it up by getting rid of brand politics. Talk to me as an individual candidate who is running with ideas on how to solve problems. But when you default to brand politics, then all you're saying is we want to backslide into the same shit that got us into the ditch that we're in.
Correct, because President Trump won off of brand politics. Quick slogans, we're going to build a wall and everybody yell, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Where when they talked to Hillary Clinton, and you look on her website, she has 7 pages of actual remedies and planning. People have gotten so lazy where they don't want to hear the details. They just want to hear the catchy slogan.
Right.
That's what that politicking branding is. So anybody in that line A, as he already branded, what was it? Vote line A all the way?
Right.
Whatever it can be. Exactly. Getting people into that catch slogan so that they can just vote right down the line, not think about who's running, think about what this person is looking to do, thinking about his policy, practice, procedures, or even his ideology in terms of governing. And we're about to run into a situation where we're going to have the same leadership, the same mindset of leadership like we got in the White House now.
Yeah. So listen, I want to lighten this up a little bit. Unless you all want to continue to talk about, because I could talk about it. I could talk about Biden. I could talk about the posts that are coming up. I could talk about how they're trying to manipulate, poll numbers now to give everybody the impression that Biden is leading Trump, right? CNN is doing the same thing that they did in 2016 when they were saying that Hillary Clinton was way ahead of Donald Trump. All of this, we can talk about that if you want to, but I last night made some chocolate chip cookies and I had all my comfort food, and Amina and I settled down to watch Bad Boys for Life for the second time. And I'll tell you, it was a phenomenal movie. It was better than the other two for me. So that's what I did. And I'm gonna go back to watching along with actually professional development, right? So I'll be on Skype with Vincent later on, and Vincent and I will be doing some software work, right? Diane and I did some yesterday, so I'm doing exactly what I'm suggesting everybody else to do. But you should take a break. Right, take a break. The other thing, on to the healthy eating. I went and ordered these big planters because starting they should arrive Tuesday from Amazon. And yeah, I'll wipe down the boxes and everything. I'll leave them out on the porch for 24 hours. Hope nobody takes them. But I ordered these big planters, and I'm going to plant tomatoes in one. I'm gonna plant onions and peppers and squash and zucchini. I'm gonna plant all of that stuff. I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna take pictures of the whole thing, right? And then I got these bags. And the bags are for like potatoes and carrots, things that grow under the ground. And the bags are really cool because you don't have to dig the stuff up. The bag has midway in it a zipper that you could just unzip, and you can see the roots of those things, and you could actually just pull the potatoes and the carrots straight out of the dirt, and then seal the bag back up. So I am going to be growing all my. Cause look, I'm like I was very honest with you guys. I'm going to get my gun permit, and I'm growing my vegetables and stuff. I'm going and look at the ordinances to see if I can grow raise some chickens, and maybe even a goat for milk. And listen, I'm not. You all think I'm joking? I'm not joking.
Hey, well, also what you want to include with the healthy eating, start growing your own herbs.
Oh no!
Parsley, oregano, thyme.
Absolutely. We're gonna do an herb garden too. And I got to do a near beer garden because I can't drink alcohol anymore. So I got to do old duels.
Well, I got some neighbors right now that are trying to grow their own beer garden. So, But yesterday, I shared with some people, and I've been washing my hands so much with this virus thing and going back and forth and washing everything cleanly. And I was wearing my slippers around the house, and my wife says, "Oh my God, the virus has made you coordinated." And I thought she was talking about what I was wearing. I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She says, "For what?" She says, "Look at here. Your hands are just as ashy as your ankles."
You know what? And you're right. From washing my hands, well, what I started using is coconut oil, right? But from all of the hand washing, my hands started getting dry, and my cuticles getting dry. You got to really pay attention to that, guys. And then the hand sanitizer, because it has it's alcohol based, right? It will dry your skin as well. So it is important to moisturize, because you don't want to damage your skin if you can help it.
Oh, yeah, so she got on me. I said, okay, so I went and got her whatever it is, this real crazy, deep, moisturizing hand lotion. Yeah, I can't use that. She got me Clean Helene, $7 for like a gallon of it.
Right. Hey, Vincent, I can't get my hat. I can't, and people, like Amina, she says, "Baba, you had it like cockeyed on the show." And I said, well, when I look at the camera, like what's left is right and what's right is left. So I try to tug the one side down, but I'm really tugging the wrong side down. And then it just really looks like it's sideways. So it is what it is. I'm sorry.
I posted on I shared your show on my campaign Facebook page, and I got a comment that says, "Oh, you're just doing this you're just talking about that incident for attention with my son."
Oh.
And let me express to you the agony of actually spending 2 weeks in court, knowing that your life is on the line, facing 36 years. And, that wasn't to me the biggest tragedy of what happened to me with this incident. What happened was because I chose to be a father and a stand-up man to discipline and show my son the ways that he should grow up and be, that I have lost my son because his mother chose to take money and falsely accuse me. I have lost my child. Do you actually think that I would do that for attention? Please, people, don't insult my intelligence.
Well, listen, some as you were recounting that whole incident, I got a text message from somebody that said that, they would reconsider sharing that information, if they were running for U.S. Senate. It would come out, right? I mean, if it's a part of public record, it would come out. And I think that getting ahead of those kinds of things is really important. Folks, look, I told the story, and I told you, Vincent, that when I announced that I was running for Congress, the folks came out and they started rehashing an incident that occurred in 1980, 1981 with my family and me, and started, this whole thing up again about the court case that, we went through. And me talking about it is important to be able to put people on the right track in terms of where things is, because they say a lie spreads much faster than the truth does, right? So I want to get the truth out there ahead of the lie, so that when the lie comes, because it's always going to come, when the lie comes, folks are inoculated because they've heard the truth already. So, you gotta, I think in some cases you gotta trust what you're doing.
Well, Eric, I mean, I use my story and my platform and my event in terms of talking with people and motivating them to, one, understand that, you can make a mistake in life and grow from it and be a better man because of it. Mm-hmm. And two, it empowers people who have made that, so that they can stop sitting back saying that, oh, I got a criminal record, oh, I did this, I did that, I can never aspire or be. That's bullcrap. I challenge some children that I do motivational speaking with, and their thing was, these high school kids were like, well, you got a criminal record, you can't vote or you can't run for office. And I challenged them to Google it. And they were shocked to find out that, yes, you can have a criminal record and you are allowed to vote in the state of New Jersey. And I even challenged them to say, okay, look up how many people on the U.S. Senate have criminal records. And they were shocked to the term of knowing that 32% of the senators in this country have criminal records.
How many?
32%.
I would expect it would have been higher than that. I guess the other ones just didn't get caught yet, huh?
One of the biggest ones that gave him the greatest amount of shock is George Stephanopoulos.
Oh, he's got a criminal record. For
yes.
What? For what?
He was part of the Clinton campaign.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, and I said, and you look at the entertainers who have criminal records who are making millions of dollars. Tim Allen, Steve Harvey.
Well,
so you should never let your past define or dictate your future. The past tells where you've been, okay, and it does tell the changes that you have made. Now, you look at my past record in terms of my service to the community. We have brought lots of money and worked towards homeless people. We have stocked somewhere close to 1,700 pounds of food in our campaign drive for the food bank of South Jersey. We have helped people get into homes who were homeless and apartments. We have done work and research in getting people jobs, especially ex-offenders. Not to mention, my love and passion doing the prison ministry and talking to fellow inmates and preaching to them about redemption and finding the right path and making direction, as well as our autism campaign and bringing awareness to that to police officers. So that, because in the state of New Jersey, there was a guy who was locked up in county for 2 weeks because the only thing he could say is, "What's your name?" So they kept locking him up thinking he was being smart. Then they found out that he had autism and his family has been looking for him. It's very important in terms of our campaign
And you know, prison ministry for me and prison reform is not me sitting up here on a campaign soapbox and talking trash and doing nothing. No, I've been there. I lived there. When you were talking about ramen soup in prison, it was a hookup. It was a Sunday meal.
Well, one of the things that, you know what, one of the things I want to say about the ramen noodle thing that, thanks for bringing that to, look, I would wish that people didn't eat it because of the high sodium content, right? Oh, I missed the call. Caller, please call back. But because of the high sodium content, but in some cases, it's all people can afford. You know, it's all people can afford, and that's what I'm saying. So some of the underlying conditions. So if you are an elected official and you know that you come into an environment where folks are susceptible to a lot of things because of their underlying condition, right? Either lack of education, lack of employment, lack of training, all these things, right? Which now lead them to having to make poor food choices because it's all that they can afford. The question is, what are you doing to strengthen them so that they can get off of, having to purchase ramen noodles or those kinds of things? And so, if we don't see the needle moving in those areas, then we say that those people are susceptible. Call or go.
Hey, I don't know if it might be a time where I was watching. I just want to say that if all people can afford it,
wait a minute. Listen, I can't. I need you to. I need you. I can't hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. My fault. I had my thing pointing the wrong direction. I was just going to say, if all people can afford is ramen noodles, then you can afford a bag of navy beans. We'll make you some navy bean soup the way our teacher taught us. You understand? There's better choices. We can't say to ourselves that this way that they have taught us or what they advertise to us is the way we have to live unhealthy.
Well, you know what? I agree with you there. If you could afford ramen noodles, find out whatever that, I don't know what ramen noodles cost, but whatever cost is of a ramen noodle package or whatever, is there something else in that same price range that's healthier for you to eat? I agree with you there.
Hey, I'm going to date myself. See, back in the day, it was called you used to go to Murray Steaks.
Oh wow! Everybody used to go to Murray Steaks.
Lug those frozen heavy processed foods home, and you were good. You see, but now it's changed, and and you see, that was the other thing that they looked at in terms of social policies and social economic policies. You know that $1,200 is more than what the family of three on welfare would get for a month. Now, try for those people who think that people are living high off the hog on welfare. Take that $1,200 that you're getting right now and see how you can stretch that for a month. And tell me if this economic package is bullcrap.
Well, look, I mean, I think that people realize that it is. But they're going to take what I say to you before. People are conditioned to settle for less, so they'll settle for the $1,200, but they want more. But they'll only do it if somebody else fights for it. So they won't go out and fight for the more. Do you understand what I'm saying? So right now, they already know that the $1,200 isn't going to do anything. But they're waiting for the $1,200 anyway. Then when they get to $1,200, they're going to complain about it. But they're going to take it. They're going to cash a check. They're going to spend it. And then they're going to sit and they're going to wait passively for somebody else to fight for something else for them. It's happening right now. Right? People are already they've already in their minds spent the $1,200. And because now they've already spent it and they're doing a calculation, they realize it's not enough. And they're bitching about it. But they're not doing anything to change it. That's happening right now. Right now.
Right. And then, of course, not to mention that wonderful politician who said that, I'm going to fight hard to get you more money. No, that shit has sailed, brother. We all know that president isn't giving you crap. In fact, it's you against the rest of them. And you're not going to vote against your interest with Big Pharma, who wants, their billions of dollars in their economic stimulus. Yeah. So stop lying to us.
Yeah. And then I saw something that Governor Murphy is asking landlords to be compassionate during this time. The question is, how are you? So was that Diana chimed in?
My mortgage is still due.
Right. So for landlords that are asked to be compassionate, what Phil Murphy is asking you to do is suspend your understanding of how you're tethered to this thing, right? You collect rent that gives you an income to be able to pay the mortgage of the house that your tenant is living in, right? So what Governor Murphy is saying, beyond asking you to be compassionate, is he's asking you to foot the bill, right? So that's what he's really asking. And what he's saying, which I think is really interesting, he's saying, and if you don't foot the bill, you're not being compassionate.
Well, it depends on how much compassion your mortgage company has on you.
Yeah. So that's where it really has to go, right? So you, as a homeowner, right, as an investor in real estate who has tenants, you need relief too. So, it's beyond Governor Murphy asking you to give relief to your tenant. And we had people on, and I got to get Avi Richardson back on to find out whatever became of the meeting that they had. But beyond asking you to provide relief to the tenant, there has to be, and this, the only way that the mortgage company is going to provide relief to you is if the government offers them something. Right? The mortgage company is not just going to show compassion. That's not what they're in business to do. They're in business to make money. And, and that's the world that we live in.
Well, let's look at right now. They're trying to now get an additional $250 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for small businesses, because the other $370 billion is already spent.
So I wonder, and then so here's the other thing. I wonder how many of you small business people. Well, so we got to go back a little bit before I make this statement. A lot of folks say that they're in business, but you're really not in business. You're just hustling, right?
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
Because you're not really in business, you're not structured to be able to take advantage of these small business opportunities that exist right now because of this stimulus package. And that's a shame.
True. Well, to be qualified for it, it takes a level of bona fidelity in terms of the Small Business Administration being a recognized business, which means you have to be a registered proprietor, partner, LLC, or corporation, or either subchapter C or S. And and you have to have, of course, the certifications of EIN number, state number, tax number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the people who actually qualify for this. Now, if you're sitting up here, you're paying rent, you've been at this shop, but you've been a kind of like mom and pop status, then no, it is a hustle, and you do not qualify.
Yeah.
So so once again, in the urban communities, we're going to see now more businesses close because of their ignorance or willing not to be registered, and their ability not to receive the fundings in which they should get. There's no way in the world that big corporations should be getting trillions of dollars, and you have an opportunity to get something to get you through. Yet, because of you not wanting to be legal and recognized, because you don't want to pay taxes, which they do fine you anyway, that you would, miss out on this opportunity in steps. The same thing that we were talking about with the people waiting for their $1,200. A lot of people are shocked to find out that they don't qualify because they don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
That's how, yeah. They go down the list, and people who pay their income taxes or work and, get income, which is tax deductible, they send them the check. Everybody else, no, it ain't going to happen. So, look at the stimulus package and your politician that voted for, and see how much it helps you.
Yeah. And you know, you bring up a very, very good point. We got a couple minutes left to go on the show, but even when you talk about the undocumented, right? And we talk about how they played such an integral part in our economy, right? And so the push was to keep them here because of what they provided to the economy. A lot of them don't pay taxes, even though they in the argument was about them not paying taxes, and the statements that were made was, well, when they go and purchase goods, they pay taxes in the store, but they're not paying federal and state tax. So now with them being out of work, right, they too don't qualify for this $1,200, and so they have no money. They live cash based, right? And now they're gonna suffer as well. So even where, you know, they live in the shadows, they were able to pay their rents through their cash-based earnings, hustling out there, day laborers, some of them, other kinds of jobs. You know, they were the undergirding of this piece of the economy and this piece of the neighborhood. They can't pay their rent either, and they're not going to collect any money.
Correct. So once again, another business or enterprise is suffering from this. Now, there are some people who go, yeah, great, they should. They've been doing this for a while. They are undocumented. They've been doing A, B, C, and D. But then there are other people who go, but wait a minute, they provide a really good service to the community.
Yeah.
And so that is part of, once again, the new norm that we have to rebuild. And part of rebuilding this is understanding who is making the rules and who is doing legislation that's supposed to look out for you and protect you in your interest. And what have they been doing now?
So much. Well, listen. What do you got planned for the weekend?
Well, I'm getting ready for my Easter service online. My pastor, Reverend Dr. Stanley Hurst Sr.
That's absolutely correct. Hey, Diane, is your church going to do an online service too?
Oh my God, yeah, they doing it, but I don't think it's live, so I'm annoyed. So I'm going to be watching somebody else's church service. Don't get me started on what they're not doing over there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. I think we touched the nerve.
So let me ask you this question. So
every single Sunday, me and my cousin have it out about what's not happening, what should be happening, and I'm just like, I'm over it.
So I want to ask you this question, and this is a real question, and we only got 3 minutes to go. But churches rely on tithes and offerings, right? And whether you like it or not, a lot of it is peer pressure when you're in the church, right? It's the emotional giving that happens sometimes in the church. And so the plate comes around and you didn't necessarily intend to give, but that plate is coming and the pastor is preaching and talking to you about how you gotta. And so you sometimes reluctantly pull that check out or pull that cash out, put it in that envelope, put it in the plate. Churches are suffering financially too now.
Churches are going to close. Churches were closing before all of this. Catholic churches, of course, you know, they had the big sex scandal that shut down a lot of Catholic churches and schools and cut off their funding. They'll continue to close. Other churches, Methodist churches, Baptist churches have merged churches together because of the overhead and small membership. But churches will close. There will be a lot of churches, and those storefront churches, you can forget it, they're gone. They definitely won't close.
Well, if I could, one of the things that you have to look at is church is the body of Christ and the community. You realize that is not the building and the structure. That is the body of Christ. Christ is supposed to
we recognize that. But the question becomes...
But hold on, let me finish.
We got a minute.
And 1 minute or less, if I could not support this. Now, the other thing is that giving and tithing is a joy and a gift to give back for one who has given you, and you give back to support the community. Churches do things like, you know, scholarships and books for our students and stuff like that, clothing, backpacks, and some are even giving out computers. So tithing...
However, church is a business.
That's what I'm getting at. So all of the stuff that you talked about, I get it, but it's a business in the end. And here's the other piece. What's going to happen to the real estate?
Well, the churches are owned. Most of the churches, like Baptist, Methodist churches, those churches are owned by a larger organization. They're not individually owned by the individual churches, so they're still owned. And they'll start to sell them off.
No. Hear what I'm saying to you. I'm talking specifically. So we can talk about those bigger churches. But now, like I said, let's go to the urban communities. So you got all these churches, right?
They'll be empty. Rent won't be paid. They'll be empty.
True, which some churches are, of course, like businesses. They're started up and they're paid for by the congregation. If they're not negotiating with their mortgage company right now and they have a note, it could be possible. It could very well be possible. However, I think that a lot of them are going to survive because the congregation does rally around those who give them hope and faith. And in this situation, more than ever, we need our hope and faith.
All right.
Besides, black people don't use politicians. We just believe in Jesus and a bath.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy the weekend. And we'll see you on Monday.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. God bless
Hey, somebody's got
everybody.
to tell me on Monday what Easter has to do with a bunny rabbit and what a bunny rabbit has to do with eggs. Well, we'll discuss that on Monday.
All right.